This is the second part of STEM 32, which is going to continue on with the learning environment. But in particular here, we're going to be talking about some practice methods as well as different forms of feedback. So this is the second part of STEM 32, looking at these 2 dot points. First of all, we're going to look at massed and distributed practice. So this is types of practice. If we go back to our dot point, you'll see there the practice methods. So the first we have is massed and distributed practice. So massed practice is like continuous type of practice in which the rest periods are either very short or don't exist. So an example would be a netball player who is a goal shooter. She goes out and practices shooting for 20 minutes continuously. That's massed practice. So there's minimal breaks or hardly any breaks at all. It's just continuous 20 minutes of shooting. Whereas distributed practice, how it differs from massed practice is that this occurs when periods of rest or periods of practicing other skills are equal to the periods of practicing the primary skill. So for the example of a netball goal shooter, she's practicing shots from the right for 10 minutes, goes and has a break for 10 minutes, practices shooting from the left for 10 minutes, followed by rest for another 10, 15 minutes. So the difference between shooting continuously for 20 minutes, being mass practice, compared to shooting for 10 minutes from one side, having a break, shooting from the other side for 10 minutes, then having another break. That's distributed. So massed is continuous non-stop. Distributed is they break it up over a period of time to give them a rest. No real difference between the 2 methods in learning basic skills. However, distributed practice is more effective than mass practice because it allows for feedback to be given. Because they're stopping, the coach can come and say, you know what, your right hand's a bit low on the way you're shooting the ball there. Let's practice for this next 10 minutes getting that right hand up. And just as we look further down here, mass practice is preferred for highly skilled performers, highly motivated performers. Distributed practice is preferable for the novice, so people that are learning, so they can break up the skills and keep their concentration. In situations where energy demands are high and when the task is difficult or it's quite boring. By breaking it up, it's going to keep people motivated and on task. The next type of practice method is whole and part practice. So another way to practice is to use this whole or part method. This refers to whether the skill should be practiced in parts or as a whole. So the part method is where elements of a skill are broken down into parts, with each part taught independently. An example of this is in the long jump, where timing jumping off the board is difficult, so the skill is broken down into the run-up, the takeoff, and the landing. So in the one skill, right, we talk about the long jump being one skill, we break up the actual activity. That's part method. So we practice the different elements of that one movement, and then we put it all together at the end. Whereas the whole practice involves the coach teaching the entire skill in one go as a complete whole, as a complete skill. An example would be the jump shot in basketball, where for advanced athletes, the entire aspect of the jump shot is taught in one go. So they're not breaking down the position of holding the ball, where your feet should be. It's just let's practice continuously the jump shot. And again, I think for the whole practice would be more aimed at your experienced athletes or athletes that are in the autonomous stage who can automatically go and perform that skill without a problem. And it says down the bottom here, part practice is useful for novices or when learning a new skill. We're now going to look at some sources of feedback. So we have internal feedback. So internal feedback is information received naturally from the senses as a result of our movement. So when I pass a basketball, if I'm aware of my own legs, my shoulders, my arms, and my fingers, how they're moving through the air, for me, that's feedback. The athlete is also aware of the ball leaving their fingers and can see and hear it being caught by the partner, knowing quite well they've done a good pass. The athlete thus performs movement information about the performance without the use of equipment, devices, or other people. So it's internal, so it's coming from within. Whereas external feedback is information that is provided from the outside the performer's natural sensory awareness, such as a coach. This external feedback might be the coach's voice, a scoreboard, video analysis, or a cheer of the crowd. So you've got here a coach talking to his players, so they're getting some feedback. That's external feedback. There are 2 types of external feedback. There is knowledge of results, known as KR, and there is knowledge of performance, known as KP. So knowledge of results is information that is provided externally after the completion of an action. It is based on the outcome of the performance or on what caused the outcome. It is particularly helpful when learning a new skill. Knowledge of results allows the learner to correct an action the next time, to be reinforced when the attempt is totally or partially correct, and to remain motivated to try again. So a score in gymnastics and the coach's reaction to his or her team's performance are examples of knowledge of results. So I go and perform my movement. At the end of my gymnastics routine, I walk over to the coach, and the coach gives me some feedback. I know it can either be a very good performance or a bad performance or a mediocre based on the feedback that the coach gives me. Knowledge of results. or the judges' scores go up and give me 6 or 7s out of 10, I know that's not probably my best performance, but it's above average. So that's knowledge of results. When the performance is, or the results from the performance gives you the feedback on how you've gone. That's an example here for a picture. So arrows in a target provided knowledge of results. So when I shoot the arrow, where it lands, obviously that gives me an idea of what the result is. If I get a 10, that's the best result. So there's the feedback. I know I've done a good job. Whereas knowledge of performance is information that is received either internally or externally concerning the movement executed. Knowledge of performance does not inform about the movement successes. Rather, it informs about the performance of the movement pattern itself or how it looked. For example, a gymnastics coach informing the gymnast that she had good body shape and height during a movement, or that her feet came apart directly relate to the actual movement and not the score. So the coach walks over, or the athlete comes over to the coach at the end of the performance. Knowledge of results would be the scores that they see. Knowledge of performance would be the feedback the coach gives you about the actual performance, saying, you know what, your legs were a little bit wide there, or your body wasn't really straight in this position. So you're getting some feedback on your actual performance. Just got a picture here. This is obviously knowledge of performance. Players are given feedback by the coach based on their performance. So Jason Taylor's talking to his players here at quarter time, half time, based on how they're going. And his feedback is purely directed at the performance of his athletes. That's what he'll be talking to them about. So that's knowledge of performance. We also have concurrent and we have delayed feedback. So concurrent feedback is feedback that is received during the performance. So it's automatic. It happens as it occurs, that's the feedback. Examples include the feel of a ball as it hits a table tennis bat, or the side of the goalkeeper moving to the left before a penalty stroke. So it's concurrent, it's as it's happening. Delayed feedback is provided after the performance and is therefore received too late to produce a response at the time. A player jumping to head the ball in soccer cannot change the body's position in the air when the ball is 1 metre from the head. In this case, the correctness of the action is gauged after the ball has been headed. That's an example of delayed feedback. So what we've got here, the feel of the ball as it hits a table tennis bat is an example of concurrent feedback. The player here knows that the ball or the table tennis ball's come off the bat quite well because he's hit it well. So his feedback is obviously from as he's hit it immediately that he's done a good shot. Whereas delayed feedback, you got to see the coach is talking to the athlete about her performance. So she's finished her swim, she's out of the pool, he's now having a look at some video work from her. So that's delayed. She's finished swimming the 50 metres, she hops out, they have a look at the video. And that's the end of STEM 30.